Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. Here I tell stories about guns from various games, movies and TV series, unveiling myths and finding the most interesting facts about weapons. This video is dedicated to Counter-Strike Global Offensive. The game has more than 30 weapons. However, the most valuable item in any player's inventory are almost always knives. Killing someone with a knife in CSGO isn't an easy task, but if it does work out, it causes wild joy in everyone, and other players begin to treat you with some respect, while shame and disgrace awaits your victim. Every player has a knife and it constantly shows up on our screens because you move faster with a knife equipped in your hands. There are a whole bunch of different skins in CSGO, but as we understand, this is nothing more than a changed texture, while for knives, Valve created unique models as well. No matter what knife model you have in your hands, all knives act exactly the same. But does it work the same in real life? Of course it doesn't. Each knife has a different shape, not for its beauty, but because each knife is a special tool created to solve certain tasks. For this video, I decided to choose the most interesting and unusual knife from CSGO. The first knife we will talk about today is a Karambit, an unusual curved shape, badass looking knife with some cool spinning animation. And most importantly, its price on Steam Market varies from $50 to $15,000 for especially rare colors. But this all applies directly to CSGO. So, why do we need such an unusual knife in real life? In fact, the Karambit has some rich history. This dangerous looking knife comes from Southeast Asia, where people from Indonesia, Malaysia and the Philippines actually used it. Not for murders, farmers used Karambits to collect rice. Yes, the Karambit knife was actually just a household tool and served as something like a small scythe. Of course, there were different versions of it that were also used as weapons. What is most interesting is that a martial art called Silat was created around the use of this knife. Looking at how skillfully those guys from Asia wield the Karambit, one understands that this knife is not as simple as it might seem. Indeed, skilled warriors with Karambits in their hands look very impressive. And, of course, in combat, this steel claw is able to inflict very serious wounds. But unlike what we see in CSGO, in reality, the Karambit has always had relatively small dimensions. The idea was that the blade should stick out of the hand for only a few centimeters so that it would be more difficult for the enemy to keep track of it in battle. However, if your grandmother can handle a regular knife well, then in order to master the tactics of fighting with a Karambit, one needs to be a real master and train for many years. Therefore, when wondering whether such a knife could really appear in the hands of special forces or in the hands of terrorists, it becomes obvious that most likely the answer is no. Mostly due to the fact that learning how to handle a standard shaped knife can be much faster and easier. But there is one more issue with the Karambit. No matter how beautiful it all looks on the video, in a real life combat against a person armed with an ordinary knife, it will be hard to win with a Karambit. Roughly speaking, with equal combat skills, a fighter armed with a normal knife has a better chance of winning because all combat movements with this knife are simple and intuitive. In addition, an ordinary knife is on average 10 centimeters longer than a Karambit. Nevertheless, due to its interesting shape and beautiful martial art, the Karambit has gathered a lot of fans around the world, and many people buy this knife for themselves not to learn how to fight with it or cut a sausage with it, but simply to spin it in their hands, and for sure that looks cool. This is how the weapon with a centuries-old history in modern reality has turned into something like a spinner. The second of the knives from CSGO that also looks very unusual is, of course, the butterfly knife. It looks cool in your hands, pulling out the knife looks spectacular, and most importantly, on Steam Market it costs from $500 to more than $10,000. In a word, with such a knife, the boys around you will definitely respect you. It may seem that it looks quite modern, but it was invented relatively long ago, in the 18th century. But if the Karambit was actually used as a weapon in combat, then the butterfly knife has never become a standard equipment for any army or special forces. It was rather used as a tool to open boxes at home or just as a self-defense weapon for ordinary people. But back in the 1980s of the 20th century, all sorts of gangsters were very fond of using a butterfly knife in street showdowns or just to rob someone. After all, you should admit that when you take an ordinary knife out of a pocket, it doesn't seem too scary. But if you swiftly and confidently take out a butterfly knife and spin it a couple of times, then the impression will be completely different. Perhaps that was one of the reasons why in some states of America, they decided to ban this knife. Though this knife looked dangerous and was often used by criminals, The main reason for the ban was that everyone enjoyed spinning it so much that hospitals were constantly receiving unlucky tricksters with self-inflicted injuries from playing with a butterfly knife, which had to be treated with dozens of stitches. However, there are still a large number of people who continue to learn different tricks and compete with each other with their butterfly knife wielding skills. However, don't think that this knife has always been exclusively a toy. Automatic switchblades, for example, were invented much later, and for an ordinary folding knife, you simply won't be able to quickly pull it out and open it with one hand while you can pull out a butterfly knife in one swift movement. So at least this knife had some real benefits over the others. As for its combat qualities, it is extremely doubtful that special forces or terrorists, being in their right mind, would want to take a butterfly knife instead of a full-fledged combat knife, which is specifically adapted to withstand heavy usage, is able to cut better, and it is much more convenient to fight with it in your hands. In general, compared to a serious combat melee weapon, a butterfly knife is nothing more than a toy for children. After all, every gun that you used to make frags yesterday, every sword that helped you conquer a fantasy world, or the plasma gun that you saw in the last science fiction film, all this has its own story, and on my channel, you can find out all the most interesting facts about weapons. Press like if you found the history of these knives interesting, and leave a comment telling me which knives from CSGO are your favorites. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I'll be making more interesting videos about weapons from your favorite games, movies, and TV shows.